Boys and girls, we are stepping our game up here today. We've got a microphone. We don't have a microphone handle, but we have a microphone, so cheers. Ooh, that's dangerous. So seemingly out of nowhere, a lot of things from the late 90s and early 2000s are just blistering back into popularity. Every time I log into Twitter, I am just bombarded with this early Y2K aesthetic that I thought was long since over. No one can shut up about the royal family and Princess Diana. Pokemon cards are just flying off the shelves. And on top of that, a lot of the Gen Zers on TikTok have taken to romanticizing home videos of high schoolers from that day and age. You know, my day and age. Putting aside the very obvious, not so happy and fun parts of that time period, it's through these mnemonics that I've actually been exploring how my life has changed from that period until now. The main difference that stands out to me, and apparently everyone in these comment sections of these TikToks, is how prevalent cell phones are now embedded into our everyday lives. Now, when I went to go read the comments on these videos, I expected the typical and rather warranted criticisms of millennials to be present, but it was actually rather heartbreaking to see the opposite to be true. No phones, just in the moment. Genuinely feel that social media and phones ruined my childhood. They had the perfect balance of technology. Early 2000s was the peak of humanity. Now, these comments weren't at all, cherry-picked from these sections. This is basically everything that I saw on those pages. And it really got me thinking about how my cell phone usage varies from today versus how it was back then. The iPhone didn't even come out until 2007. I don't think I owned one until 2010, making my first exposure to smartphone ownership at the ripe old age of 18. Now, I by no means consider myself to be a smartphone power user. Aside from using it as a constant stream of background noise while I'm working and my morning and evening routines of scrolling through TikTok and Twitter, that's pretty much it for me. I'm not that compelled to always be looking at my phone. In fact, when I go out with friends, I make a point to either leave it in my car entirely or make sure it's in my pocket or purse at all times unless it's needed. However, that was just my perception. Maybe it had sunk its teeth more into my life than I had ever even realized. It was in pursuit of an answer to this hypothetical question that I sought out and purchased the Light Phone 2. With the tagline of designed to be used as little as possible, the Light Phone 2 is the world's dumbest smartphone. Weighing in at a whopping 2.75 ounces, this credit card-sized cell phone features the abilities to call, text, do some simple arithmetic, listen to music or podcasts, and that's about it. After preloading it with all my information using its online dashboard, all I needed to do was switch my SIM card from my smartphone to the Light Phone 2 and voila! Instant dumb smartphone. For a week, I wanted to see how much this device change affected me. Now, since I never considered making the switch entirely over to a dumb phone, more so balancing between the two, I sought out establishing a set of rules to help keep me within those bounds. I ensured that the SIM card was already switched over the night prior to waking up, so that when I woke up, my morning routine would already be established from using the dumb phone until the working day was actually over. Whenever my iPhone was not in usage, I intended to leave it in my bedroom, which during the workday I very rarely would visit. I guess all that remains is the question, why in the world did I do this at all? Like I said, I'm not a phone addict by any means. I was very curious to see how much I was dependent on my phone for seemingly frivolous purposes, and also how that might have an adverse effect on my mental health, having that constant exposure to what the Make Time book refers to as infinity pools of information. But before we could actually dive into the experiment itself and its results, we first must establish a baseline. Just gonna roll you on in here. We are going to be kicking off our experiment here tomorrow, and so today my intent is to establish a baseline for how bad my screen time usage actually is. I have been dreading looking at this all dang day. It is the last thing on earth that I want to do is establish how bad of the habit this is, especially when I pride myself on not being a ritualistic user of my phone. I'm not one of those people that sits down and just endlessly scrolls with friends around, but I have to also acknowledge I have not been around people all that much during this quarantine, so maybe the habit has just gotten worse without me even kind of being aware of it. So today, we're diving into that. Let's see how bad it is. Again, we're only taking into account Monday through Friday. The weekends don't count because they're not counting for the experiments. All right, let's see how bad this is. Oh, this has to get fixed. Oh my God. Are you serious? So as I look through this week, okay, all right, so let's dig into the numbers. I will establish a couple of pieces of background information I think might make some sense of this. Because I definitely know it's not me sitting looking at my phone that is creating all these numbers, but I will go through them for honesty and transparency standpoint, even though I really don't want to. So for Monday the 15th, my cell phone usage was 4 hours and 35 minutes. The vast majority of that, incomparable to any other app, is TikTok and YouTube. TikTok is the one I'm most concerned about because, if anything, for YouTube videos, I usually am playing them in the background. Like my screen is open, the video is playing, but I am working on something else or doing something else, such as cooking or playing with my dog or working on a script for an upcoming video, things like that. So it's not necessarily indicative of me just sitting and mindlessly looking at my phone, but it kind of could be. I do watch videos at night in bed as well. This just gets worse. Oh God. Okay. Tuesday is 6 hours and 42 minutes. I don't want to say Wednesday. Oh, okay. Wednesday is 9 hours and 40 minutes. But have you heard of the streamer Ludwig and Pay Money Webby? Because I watch both of them on Twitch. Ludwig has been doing a streamathon. Pay Money Webby did his weekly stream on Wednesday. I watched both in the background on my phone while I was doing other things. So essentially my phone was on playing Twitch most of the day while I was working or doing things around the house. I don't think that's a worthy excuse because it's still pretty bad, but that makes more sense of it. Thursday is 5 hours and 35 minutes. And then Friday is 7 hours and 24 minutes. Okay. So if anything, if I can reduce, let's throw YouTube out of the equation for now because, like I said, YouTube and Twitch for that matter are not necessarily me sitting and looking at my phone. TikTok 100% is. So if we can reduce TikTok usage, I will chalk this up as a win because I have learned some things from TikTok. But for the most part, it's just funny memes and things like that. It's nothing actually productive. So if we can reduce one thing overall, I would like to improve and reduce the amount of time I'm spending on TikTok through the use of the light phone 2. And with that baseline established, let's kick off this experiment. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. I woke up on day 1, March 22nd, with my SIM card already moved into my light phone and my iPhone off and in a separate room. I was a bit paranoid about going to sleep, actually. I have an alarm clock, but aside from that, I usually set 1,000,000 alarms on my iPhone as backup as well, where the light phone only allows you the ability to create one. Luckily, this time around I managed to wake up just with my regular alarm. I didn't even need the one on the light phone. Maybe the anxiety about not having that safety net compelled me to get up a bit earlier. The first noticeable difference aside from this was how not having access to my iPhone immediately impacted my morning routine. Good morning. Welcome to the cozy hour. So this is around, it's around 8:30 a.m. It's usually when I sit down, and start beginning my workday. So this is now around the second and a half hour I've been using my light phone, and so far it's going amazing. I will say there's already been a slight hiccup, which is very interesting to think about how your daily process works. Traditionally, I wake up, I scroll on TikTok for about 30 to 45 minutes. I take Bo out, play with him, energize him a little bit, put him in his crate, get ready, and then go to Starbucks. And so on the way to Starbucks, my process should be to drive. Maybe drive and listen to something. Usually though, it is drive, pre-order my Starbucks using the app, have a YouTube video on in the cup holder so that I can constantly never give my brain an actual break. And so today I came across that little bit of a speed bump, right? I was like, okay, I just need to go there, and there's no Starbucks app on the light phone, which is appropriate. So you just need to rethink your day a little bit more. Obviously I could have put in an order ahead of time through my computer, or I can just order with the Starbucks card if I'm concerned about points from the actual store. But it was really interesting to see how much of my rhythm was dependent on having easy access to my phone. Not only that, but I got up around 30 to 45 minutes earlier not waking up earlier. Waking up time was the same. That's the sad part. Waking up time was the same, but overall I got up so much earlier because there was no scrolling. If anything, I put on one of the Sweet Boys podcasts, which is really, really a nice way to wake up in the morning, listen to them, and got straight into my routine. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump now into my work routine and get this day started. The rest of the day went really expediently. I found it especially nice during my lunch break, where I'm usually compelled to address the extremely large amount of Slack messages and emails that have gone unread throughout the morning. Quarantine has been a disaster for my tendency to overwork, and having this separation from work and play really, really helped. Day 2, March 23rd, was less full with work stuff, which allowed me to explore how the Light Phone 2 really acted as a means of communication. I had already preloaded a good chunk of contacts on Sunday evening, so I thought I had access to everyone I needed. That wasn't really the case. Hello. Welcome to my bathroom. So this is the very literal end of day number 2. So I figured I could just do my nighttime routine and kind of talk through what I learned today, because today focused a lot on the Light Phone 2's application as an actual phone. Now let's first go over its use of contacts. Now because contacts are applied through the dashboard online, you naturally can import all of them, or you can select a subset. I went with the subset because it actually gave me a reason to kind of cull a lot of contacts. There was so many people in my current phone that I either don't contact anymore, a couple of them have actually probably passed away by now, definitely things like old businesses and stuff I used to work for, so it was nice to have an abbreviated list. But, for example, once again, on my Starbucks run, I wanted to multitask, naturally. I had to call Bo's vet, which I thought I had in my Light Phone, and I didn't, so I had to naturally wait until I got home. There's no way to search for contact if you don't already have it in your phone. There's no access to the internet. When it came down to actually making physical phone calls, it was great. I tested out with both just a one-on-one call, and then actually had that friend added another additional person make a group call, and it worked out phenomenally. No one even noticed I was using something different, which was actually pretty cool. The only real disappointment at this moment has to be with regards to the actual way you can text on the Light Phone 2. First of all, it's a lot smaller than the iPhone I'm used to. It's really, really tiny, and so I'm just not used to that type of handling anymore. And also, there's a serious bit of delay. You click and then it fills in. You click and then it fills in. So especially if you've misspelled something, you can be like halfway through the next word and have to go all the way back. For something like this, especially with its size, I'm surprised there isn't some sort of voice-to-text feature, though I think I remember seeing that on a blog that it might be in development, so I might need to double check on that one. Or at least just having some very simple autocorrection would help with that lag in the overall phone size. But overall, as long as you prime it with the right contacts from the beginning, at least you can have the type of communication you want, especially if you're calling people, which honestly is so much faster than texting anyway. I don't know why people rely so heavily on texting anymore. And with that, we're on to day 3. I can't wait to see what I learn tomorrow. Aside from exploring its functionality as a phone, I also felt my relationship with social media already beginning to change. I was beginning to feel like how I used to when I would travel abroad. I wouldn't always pay for cell phone service when I was in different countries, and so had to only rely on my phone when I had access to Wi-Fi, which was usually pretty rare. I began to remember why I loved that feeling so much of being completely isolated from the deluge of information that we are constantly exposed to. It was like a breath of fresh air. I wasn't immediately exposed to the latest worldwide disaster or violent event or social media scandal, and I think that was actually better. Day 3, March 24th, I was rather low on my active calorie goal for the day by the time work ended, so it was time for the Light Phone 2's first big outing and the opportunity to test out its variety of tools. Forgive my voiceover, I am nowhere near confident enough to visibly record myself in public. That's the best I can do. While much better size and weight for walking, I really had to change up my walking routine. Normally, I listen to books and music, both of which I couldn't do because I use Spotify and Audible. However, like earlier in the week, I found myself returning back to podcasts, which honestly was easily just as good. One thing I had not anticipated was the Light Phone 2's battery and how it would function differently than my iPhones would. Since the Light Phone 2 is really not designed to be used all that much, when you do use media-dependent tools like music or podcasts, it guzzles your battery life. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world, considering that you're not using it all that much anyway, and also the fact that the phone charges remarkably fast. I think it went from 0 to 100 in less than 30 minutes. While the speed of consumption of battery life might scare a few people, I still never came across the instance where I had run out prior to the day being over, so it wasn't that big of a problem for me. It Day 4, March 25th, I oddly enough actually had some plans with friends. The state of Texas has been recently ramping up vaccinations and expanding capacity limits as well, so we decided to celebrate and go out for dinner probably for the first time in 2021. So today is day 4, Thursday, and I just got back from a dinner. So I hadn't been out to dinner in forever. And so a small group of friends and I went out to a local restaurant, one that I had not been to, which is an integral part of the story. One weird element to this equation is the directions aspect. I didn't know where this restaurant was, and so there was like a large debate of whether or not I break my rule and use my regular iPhone to get there, or I like print off directions, which is the avenue I ended up going with, which seems a little absurd. But without the accessibility of a modern day cell phone, that's the best thing that I had. Luckily, I've heard that the Light Phone team is actively working on integrating that as a new functionality released early this year. So it should be coming down the pipeline soon, which is really, really good. Because if I got lost or things had changed, it would have been really, really difficult to adapt to that situation. Second, it was really interesting how different the conversation was, or at least how often I realized that even though I don't necessarily go on my phone while people are talking, how many times we actually use them in conversation. Whether it's looking up an actor from a film that you can't remember, or pulling up a picture of something that you saw recently, those are small interactions that do necessitate the non-social media functionality still of a modern day cell phone that the Light Phone doesn't have. It wasn't necessarily a detractor, it was just something interesting that I noticed about how much, even though I pride myself on like not being the person that's scrolling through Twitter at dinner time, how much I still might reference things that my cell phone makes available to me. It was really fun to get everyone's like opinion on the phone. I hadn't shown it to anyone up until this point. So to see everyone's opinion on what it did and what its purpose was very interesting. Most of them, in fact, I think all of them were very open to the idea, right? All very hardworking women that have a tendency probably to overwork, definitely saw the appeal of having a device that puts a physical barrier in between, work and play. In a short order, we had arrived at the end of the work week already. Even though I was just slammed with stuff during the workday, I was so curious to figure out how much my screen time had improved since its disastrous baseline rating. And with that, we are at the end of our week. We are back to where we began, at the desk, with the Hawaiian shirt, got the seal pillow, got the glasses that show the reflection of the ring light. We're all set. So now let's dive straight into the overall screen time analytics and see if they improved or not. I'm actually really nervous to look at the numbers. I mean, I know I used my phone, but maybe it wasn't done to a significant amount and it was all just kind of for nothing. I'm excited, but I'm scared to see the results, I guess. So here we go. So Monday. Oh, wow. So last Monday, we were over 4.5 hours worth of screen time on the phone, whereas this Monday we came in at a whopping 1 hour and 30 minutes. So there's a 3-hour reduction in time. Okay, at surface level, this looks really, really good. Okay, so for Monday, the 22nd, we reduced 4 hours and 35 minutes down to 1 hour and 29 minutes. So Tuesday the 16th, it's not as dramatic as a shift though. It's still a good improvement from 6 hours and 42 minutes to 5 hours and 11. But it's definitely not as remarkable as the first one. So, I mean, that just definitely has to do with how I use this after working hours. That just obviously was a more immediate dependent day, which could be a good or a bad thing. Now, Wednesday, again, it's the same behavior as Monday, 9 hours and 40 minutes. That's so bad. 9 hours and 40 minutes down to 1 hour and 47 minutes. Whoo! And then for Thursday as well, 5 hours and 35 minutes to only 4 hours and 54 minutes. Again, not that remarkable of a change. So it's got this weird oscillating pattern, which probably wasn't wise to do with the mic, of overall usage. And then coming in hot once again on Friday, 7 hours and 24 minutes reduced down to 3 hours and 12 minutes. Overall, after I've done the math, that amounts to overall dropping by about half exactly, from 33 hours and 56 minutes to 16 hours and 33 minutes. It was worth it. So heck, if anything, we can say that the Light Phone achieves its intended purpose. It says, we're going to make you use your phone less, and it certainly did. So good on you, Light Phone. So in conclusion, what are the pros and the cons of the Light Phone 2? Well, for one, after analyzing my screen time, I can wholeheartedly agree that this phone achieves its intended purpose of reducing overall usage by its owner. Sometimes, though, the reason people aren't using it is because it did lack tools that are still very, very helpful to be part of a smartphone's experience that are not social media related. Things like directions, voice to text, Spotify or Audible access, things like that. I do consider this to be a minor con, considering that through the company's transparency, I know that the vast majority of those tools are going to be released rather shortly as long as nothing happens. If I was truly seeking to make note of a serious con, texting was the overall most problematic element for me. The size of the phone and its screen type make texting rather difficult. There's no sort of auto-correction for the errors that you might make. Emojis and links come through in a rather unhelpful way, and any communication that you do make will not carry forward once you switch your SIM card from your light phone back into your smartphone, and that seems to be this phone's intended purpose as well. The switching itself is rather easy, but if I had to offer any criticism, I would say that the key itself that comes with the phone is rather small. It would be so much more helpful if it was larger, or colored in a way, or even attached somehow to the light phone to itself, because in its current form, it's very, very easy to misplace or lose. Speaking of look and feel, I adore how this phone looks and feels and weighs, as well as the management system through the online dashboard. The only remaining consideration that might trip people up is its price. At a whopping $300, this is by no means a cheap purchase. So with all that in consideration, would I recommend the light phone too? Given all that I mentioned, for me, it's a yes. However, one recommendation I might make is wait until those few remaining tools have actually been launched. I think with those additional tools in mind, it's much more worthy of its price point. And with that, we're at the end of today's video. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and toss me a like, and if you'd like to see more of what I produce, go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Like I said before, I'm a very new YouTuber. It's free real estate down there, so anything that you bring up, I'll make sure to get back to. Have you yourself used a light phone too? What was your experience like? So thank you so much again for joining me, and have a great day. Cheers.